Good morning and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. So a bit of a break from the hysteria going around the meeting on Monday night, or the non-event that happened on Monday night. Tomorrow even today, this morning, I want to talk about the fact that there is a few players that are unhappy at Celtic. And when you look at Dyson Maeda's contract situation now, Celtic currently value Dyson Maeda around about €15 million, about £14 million. When you look at his contract situation, now I did say that the summer there was going to be the best time to get the biggest value for Dyson. His contract expires, and before you say, Dyson is not going to sign a new contract. Dyson wants away. He is unhappy and he wants to leave Celtic. I think we all know that. So for anyone with the notion that, he's going to sign a new contract, no, he's not. He's not. And for anyone that says he doesn't want to move for his family, well, we know that that's nonsense. Where will he go? Well, that's a discussion for another day. But Celtic will have to sell Dyson Maeda at the next window to get as much money as they can. They have to sell him in the January window. Never mind keeping him till the end of the calendar, the end of this season, because it then puts Celtic in an ominous position. Although he's still a Celtic player and he'll have 1 year contract left, his value will diminish unbelievably. And never mind the form that he's playing in just now. I mean, it's going to bring his value down anyway. But I mean, who were the teams? We know that there was one club that put in a bid for Dyson early on in the transfer window, and Celtic rejected it. They rejected the, what was it, 8.75 million or something that they offered for Dyson. And everyone thought, maybe that's just the opening volley of incoming bids. But we don't know if there was any other bids came in. There was obviously something going on in the background that Dyson obviously cleared his locker. But how do Celtic and how do Brendan Rodgers capitalise on the assets that they have? Will they still get $3 million for Yang in the next window? Will anybody want Yang? Birmingham obviously took him down there with the view of him signing the contract at Celtic, and these are deals that have to be done as soon as the transfer window opens. Never mind waiting to the end of the transfer window. Get the Dyson Maeda done quick. Get the Yang one done quick. We know the players want to leave. And so my thinking this morning is, are Celtic working on these? Are Celtic working on the replacements to come in? Because there's only a couple of months till the transfer window opens. So you need to be talking to players' agents now. Because what we don't want to happen is the same situation that happened in the summer. You know, we seem to be, we're focusing on getting rid of the board and everything. And this is things that won't happen before the next transfer window. The things that the fans collective want to happen will not happen before the next transfer window. So I just hope that it's in the background that Celtic, and as fans, we need to be putting pressure on them to make sure that the next window is sorted. As well as the campaign. You know, yes, you can still go ahead with the campaign, but there won't be the change that's needed before the next transfer window. So we need to make sure that we're putting pressure on the board to make sure that they're making the correct decisions for the club here and now. And I just hope that they're working on players, and Brendan Rodgers knows. And then you've got the contract situation with Brendan Rodgers. I mean, there's a lot of articles this morning talking about the fact that Celtic want Brendan to stay. I'm not too sure. I think that there is, for everybody, for anyone that thinks that Celtic, you're not telling me after the article that went out in the Sun that the Celtic board and the Celtic hierarchy are 100% behind keeping Brendan Rodgers after this season. I don't believe it at all. And for all the articles that have went out this morning on several Celtic media sites saying that Celtic want Brendan Rodgers, I don't believe it at all. I think there is the scenario that Brendan Rodgers, I mean, they're now saying, it depends on who the next Rangers managers will be to see if that entices Brendan to stay. That will take no bearing whatsoever. He'll not even think what's going on across the city. He won't care what manager comes in over there. He'll want to walk out and say, well, I said I'd come back for 3 years. I've walked out. Mikey Boy says he's always thought that Brendan Rodgers will stay for 4 seasons. As fans, I think we should do a poll on this one, because as fans, we're all getting a bit fed up of his style of football. I think we can all agree on that. We're all a bit peed off with the reluctance to change during games, although he did it in the last game. But he sticks to his system. He sticks to his best players. Do you really want him here? I mean, there's a double-edged sword with the question this morning. I mean, you could put a poll question out. Do you want Brendan Rodgers to be here, or do you think he will be here? Rodgers has to go, but any ideas who would replace him? No. And I think that you can understand why people are thinking that Celtic want to keep Brendan for a bit of continuity, as the great Dr. Jove Inglos used to say. You need continuity within the play. You need continuity at the club. We've got continuity in the club, in the background. I hope for Celtic, my hope for Celtic is we get a manager that comes in that's got a bit of balls and says, no, I want my own backroom staff. I don't want John Kennedy as number 2. I don't want Gavin Strachan sitting on a laptop. Sorry guys, you've been great servants to the club, but I don't see that you bring added value to my job. Yes, you've been in it a long time, but I want to bring in my own fresh ideas. And Celtic will say, but these guys can implement your ideas. Nah, I trust my own guys better. We're all thinking about changing at the top and all the rest of it. I think that the change that the Celtic fans really want is getting back to fast attacking football and bringing in flair players that excite us, players that get you up off your arse. Players when you know this play, when you know a player. I mean, where is Celtic? We've never Martin Steven Gerrard, since he's in demand so badly. Where is Celtic, and why are Celtic not finding the flair player that we used to be able to bring to the club? Players that excite us. I mean, it's harder to find these players now, especially when the way that you're buying players is stats. I want us to find a manager that goes, I don't fucking care what the stats are on this guy. I want to use my eyes, and I want to listen to him. I want to talk to him myself. I want to listen to him. I'm just seeing a comment there that I want to get up. It's hard to replace the full backroom staff, especially if it doesn't work out. But are the current backroom staff making us better? Where is ambition in the backroom? Most assistants, etc., use positions as stepping stones. Yes. The recruitment team couldn't find their arse. A lot of people saying good morning to Stephen Johnson this morning. I hate that the excitement has disappeared at the moment, says Michelle. It has. There's no player, and I don't blame Brendan Rodgers for this. I don't, because we've brought in a standard of player, project players, but just at a different price. Project players at a different price. How about keeping an eye on the Motherwell manager? I was surprised with he played. Would Celtic go down that road of bringing in someone that had played in Scotland? I want to say Dr. Joe Venglos, what a wonderful man, rest in peace. Yeah, he was, and he came in. He was a manager that was brought in to kind of steady the ship. He served his purpose, and it was it was an interesting time at Celtic. Celtic were going through a change then as well. We'd obviously stopped the 10 in a row by Rangers. We lost a fantastic manager. We then bring in Barnes and Dalglish and stuff, and it was a change in time. It was an evolving time for Celtic, and I think that looking at Celtic just now, that we're going through another evolving time. We'll look back on this in years to come. Is we're going through a period which could hopefully see us going through and going up to the next level, and I think if that does happen, and people will say, bring back Ange, not a chance. Ange has already said that he doesn't go back to clubs. It's like picking up an ex. You don't phone an ex 3 or 4 years later and go, all right, how you doing? You just don't. And that's the way that Ange Postecoglou spoke about it. So he's never coming back. Jose Mourinho, I think that he's past his sell-by date, mate. I know where you're going with that one, but that would be one. Would it be a step too far for Celtic fans in the way that he manages and the way that he's went through clubs? He's past his best as a manager. I think that we need to go out and find an up-and-coming manager, like what Brendan Rodgers was back in the day when he was at Liverpool. I'd even go as far as saying the Barnes experiment was the fault of Kenny Dalglish. Oh, don't even remind me. Don't even remind me. I hope we don't get Moyes. Nah, we're not going to get Moyes. I think his time's past. He was in and around the frame to get the manager's job around about the first time that Brendan came. And I think that if he hadn't have taken the Manchester... I think the worst thing that happened to Moyes was he took the Manchester United job. I think if he had came to Celtic rather than went to Man United, because the Man United job, anybody that took the Man United job after Alex Ferguson was always going to be on a poison chalice. You were never going to get to the levels that Fergie had. That was the start of the great decline of Manchester United, and they've never been able to really replace that manager, and they've spent good money, and they've tried different techniques. They've went out, and maybe it's a word of warning to Celtic fans. If you look at what happened to Manchester United, I mean, they have a fast turnover of managers over the recent years, as other clubs. He was put in the job by Fergie. Yeah, he was. Well, he advised the board to put him in, but then you've got to admit what Moyes done at Everton at that time, bringing through the younger players and consistently keeping Everton at the topper end of the English Premiership with no money. Moyes on paper was a fantastic option for the job after Fergie, and Fergie could see that. I mean, everyone could see it, but I just think that he took the job at the wrong time. But anyway, I don't think it'll be the Celtic job. The next few years for Man's decline, that'll be some obscure we've never heard of. Fans will do what they're told. I don't think so. Gavboy says, I would have liked to have seen where Brendan could have taken us if this board wasn't insane. This year will go down as one of the biggest disappointment years. Unless there's still a chance we could pull off a treble. We might get to the end of this season and been sitting on a treble and looking back. Will you remember the farce that went on if we get to the summer next year? If we get to May and we're going to the Scottish Cup final and we win it this time, and Brendan Rodgers manages to pull off some kind of miracle with the recruitment team and bring in players that excite us, and then maybe it does give Brendan Rodgers a dilemma. Or, as I think will happen, I think that he could win a treble and walk out the door. Could be, he would have every right to. I'm just trying to go back to comments. There was a Paul Rafa Davis. I don't think Paul Lambert. John Barnes will come back. He's bankrupt, needs money. Monty says Dr. Joe and Wim Jansen cut from the same cloth. It was a pleasure to have these men logged in our history at the club. Yes, and I think there is is there an international manager right now, or is there a manager out there that's in the same breath as Wim Jansen, Joe Venglos, or is that a manager from a bygone era? When you look at the older man, but then if you're looking at older managers, you're looking at Jose Mourinho. Do you know? So, and I don't think that it's going to be interesting for sure. But I don't think the fans would be enamoured if Brendan Rodgers does stay for another season. Not that I'm chasing him out the door by any chance. I do believe he'll stay to the end of the season. But do you know, now we know the position and the situation where the Celtic board are just, they think they're running the club fine. The Celtic collective will have meetings this week to decide the way forward that they're going to have. But we need to put pressure on the club to make sure that they get the next transfer window right. There's no use putting pressure on them to try and get rid of the current incumbents that are sitting on the board. And then during that period, mistakes are made. Because if we are the cause of the pressure that makes the mistakes in the next transfer window, well, then that's the fans that need to look at themselves. You can't blame the board. If you're putting a crazy amount of pressure to get these people out their job and they take their eye off the ball, and it seems to be easy for them to take the eye off the ball. The fact that we've got to send emails and stuff to clarify who we can buy over a certain price. There's the poll question for this morning. Oh, wait a minute. Where is it? So this one is from Square Sausage Mick. There you go. This is from Square Sausage Mick for those that are on the live this morning. Are you bored silly with Rodgers football? And it's just an honest question, because I think that and let's face it, there are a lot of fans and there's a lot of fans that were bored with it going into the third season the last time round. Let's not lie. Do you know, we can all remember we were getting fed up of his football then. And Rodgers will know that. And Rodgers is also intelligent enough to know that there's a time limit. You know, there's a time scale for a manager at a club. And it is around about the 3-year mark. You know, if you get the buzz coming in from the first year, you get the rollover into the second year, and then something at Celtic kicks in, and you know, we just don't seem to get that third year excitement, and then that's when change comes. So yeah, that was from Square Sausage Back. Are you bored silly with Rodgers football? And there's quite a few votes in already. 74% say yes, 26% no. That's just an interesting one, because we need to think about the way forward with the club, especially getting back to Dyson Maeda. Yeah, up there. Coming into the end of his contract. Do you know, Celtic, will they still get 15 million for him? There was an offer on the table. We don't know any more than that. There's nothing else being leaked, because for whatever reason, only Celtic know. They allowed him to empty his locker, so they must have been on the verge of allowing him to go and speak to another club, because you don't pack up your locker at Lennoxtown if the hierarchy at Celtic hasn't given your agent the nod. We're just waiting on this one thing happening, and then he can go and speak to the club. Which means that Celtic must have accepted an offer. or been in the process of accepting an offer. 15 million is a low ball offer, says T1. I don't think so. I think that's about the right money that you'll get for him now. Considering that we got 10 million for Kyogo Furuhashi, who was a goal scorer. Consistently over years. Daizen Maeda has never been a great goal scorer. I mean, before last season, I mean, everyone used to say, like, if Daizen could put them away like Kyogo, you'd have a fantastic striker on your hand. Because let's face it, his shooting was a way off during times, but you never expected him to score. Maybe evaluation wasn't met for Maeda. No, we all know it was the fact that Celtic couldn't get a replacement. So I think that Celtic would have said to a club, we are actively working on a replacement, and once we have the replacement in the door, that's when we'll conclude business. And that's when we'll take the negotiations to the next step, and we'll allow the player to talk to you. That's the way that these things work. So the Celtic must have been in conversations with a club, whether it was Bolton or whoever, and they must have told his agent it could happen any day now. Any day. As soon as we have the replacement in, Daizen's free to go. So Daizen's thinking, it's happening any day. Lads, I'm getting ready to go. Do you know, it's the Celtic are getting someone else in. Sayonara, boom. Empties his locker. Goes away from training. Nothing happens that day. He comes back in. He does this for 4 days before the end of the transfer window. I'm not buying it. I'm not buying... A player doesn't empty his locker unless he knows there's something concrete getting worked on in the background. And this is something that we haven't spoke about. We've spoke about the fact that Daizen emptied his locker, and then that was it. It was kind of dropped. But anyway, we move on. Is Maeda good enough for any top 5 Premiership club? Nope. He will not go to a top 5 Premiership club. He'll go to a mid-table to bottom-table Premiership club. Do you think the board have a manager in mind for Brendan Rodgers' replacement? No, because that's not how this board works. It's an unbelievable situation at Celtic that we are not. I mean, they keep eyes on people. They'd been keeping eyes on Ange for a few years. They'd been keeping eyes on Eddie Howe. They'd been in talks with Eddie for months. Remember, for months, they were keeping the job open for him, and it just rolled on and on and on and on and on, and then he ended up saying no. The negotiation skills for people at Celtic are something that I just think, what planet are you on? Especially when it comes to managers. And if we look at the previous, and especially the whole Eddie Howe thing, I mean, that was ridiculous. It went on too long. For me, a management position like that, if the decision, and once you make the offer, if the decision isn't accepted within a week, you then take the offer away. If he can't make up his mind, if a manager shouldn't need a week. And especially if you're forward planning. If there's an indication that Brendan Rodgers is not going to be the Celtic manager in the summer, you then start sounding out potentials that you know that may be up for a change in the summer. It doesn't need to it's never made public. These type of talks happen at every level of every company. Do you know, when executives leave a job, they don't see it on a notice board on a job website. It's connections and people recommending people. There'll be people in Celtic that were looking at potential managers, but we don't seem to act quick enough. And it's the same with the players, you know. And then Celtic come out with all sorts of bullshit excuses. The board is didn't they bring in Maloney for the crack? That gives me the fear. And the conversation I had at the weekend with a certain person, Sean Maloney couldn't motivate a Doug to do a shite that hadn't done one for 3 days. He is he's not a motivational person at all, is Maloney. So I know what you're saying, but I just hope to God that Maloney. I think it was Desmond's ego. Look what he got done. Yeah. John Kennedy's number 2. John Kennedy is number 2 forevermore. It seems. Hope manager will accept that. Not many, unless you're a total rookie. Well, the guy that went to Newcastle wasn't going to accept it. He wanted to bring in his own team, and he couldn't. And because he couldn't bring in his own team, I think that would have been the end for Kennedy and Strachan and stuff at Celtic if Eddie Howe had came in. But it never happened, so there's no use talking about it. Another player that has indicated that he's not happy at Celtic is obviously Yang, a player that was told he could leave and then didn't. When you look at the profile of Yang, I mean, he's not a great player. I mean, he can play on paper. He looks as if he's the ideal type of player. He can play on the right wing, he can play on the left wing, he can play as a centre forward. You're thinking, that's a great utility player. But the reality is, he doesn't back it up with the talent. He's just not got the talent. His contract expires in 2028. Now, do Celtic keep him as a backup, or I think that Celtic need to get rid of him. I think it's going down the scenario of Lewis Palmer type stuff. Just keeping a player in the background when he doesn't want to be here. I mean, we've got 2 players as it is that want to leave the club to play down in England, Yang and Dyson Maeda. Yang's currently valued at around about £2 million. We've got the offer for $3 million for him, but will that come back? I doubt it. So it's going to be very interesting over the next couple of weeks. Well, not weeks, because it's only the 8th of October. Once we get through this international break. Now, the next thing that we need to talk about is the international break is obviously here. Historically, at Celtic, the international break in October is when deals are done. Extension on contracts, because you've got the transfer window out the way. Players that the manager sees as bright futures and wants to keep at the club for a bit longer gets contracts sorted out. Manager, will he have contract talks during this window? Because it's an ideal time. There's not as many players here. It's only international football that's going on. Right, I need another 8 votes on this poll. Are you bored silly with Rodgers football? If you're watching this video back and it's not live, tell me in the comment section, are you bored with Brendan Rodgers football? And not only would you like him to stay, or do you think that 3 years is enough for a manager at Celtic? You would need to freshen things up, because the backroom staff doesn't seem to be getting freshened up either. Let's just bring up another couple of... Was Kennedy going to leave when Rodgers came back? I don't think so. He was offered the job. Was he not offered the Hibs job or something? And he said no. We're going to see the end of McGregor. Sell Maeda and buy Hibs Bowie. Hibs said in the summer window that was an ideal situation, and I think that might have been the deal that stopped Celtic selling Dyson Maeda, because Celtic went to Hibs and Hibs went, nah, we're not selling him this window. Doesn't matter what you offer us. We are not selling him at this window. And I think that was because Brendan Rodgers, if you remember, early on in the summer, Brendan Rodgers said that we need to get a core of Celtic-minded players and Scottish-based players. And we thought that it was going to be a summer where you brought in Lennon Miller. Now, Lennon Miller's come out and said, look, do you know, there was a good chance that the Celtic thing was closer than a lot of people think. But the call to Italy was just too good. And for me, the call to Italy for any young player, go and experience it, because you can always come back to Scotland. Do you know, you can come, Lennon Miller, 18-year-old, going away to Italy to play football. It's fantastic for the young lad. Do you know, it gives them a completely different type of football to play, playing against different players, playing against attacking teams, playing against teams that defend well but don't sit on a low block, funnily enough. And he gets to experience a different culture, way of life. He wouldn't have got that if he came to Celtic. And I don't think that he would have got a move to Italy if he came to Celtic first. I don't think that would have happened. You know, so he probably thought about that himself as well. And his dad would have said to him, look, you go to Celtic just now, you might not get that move to Italy a couple of years down the line. Italian clubs might go, nah, you're a bit too old for us now. You know, it's like they're buying up all the younger players. You know, you can always come back to Celtic in a few years' time. You know, a couple of moves later. But then again, there's a lot of young Scottish players that have went to 2 or 3 clubs in Italy and that are enjoying every minute of it. So anyway, we'll end that poll there. It is 71% are bored silly with Rodgers football. That was a question that was put on the chat this morning. And Yang has a cheek. We've been shy of goals since Harry Kewell left the staff. Harry Kewell is now manager in Asia or something, is he not? He's just taken up another job, isn't he? I believe. Tony Stewart says we need a full clear out of the backroom staff. They've been around for too long. Bowie is a cart horse. Bowie or Dowie, whatever his name is. I'm just reading through some of these. I don't think Brendan will have any talks this window, says Brian. I've got a feeling that Roberto Martinez is our next manager. That's why Sean Maloney's in the building. We said this, didn't we? I mean, we spoke about this at the time. Why does Sean Maloney come into a job that's way below his pay grade? Way below his pay grade. Do you know, he's an assistant manager's job level. But then all of a sudden he takes up job as... I mean, Darren O'Dea left that vacancy to go and be assistant manager at Swansea. It's crazy because Sean Maloney's been an international assistant manager, and that's your career going down. I mean, that's the kind of position you take up when you're in your 50s. You've been manager. You're not wanting the hassle of being assistant manager. Do you know, you just want to stay involved at football. Do you know, you've the club that you've always loved, and then you come back and go, I'll be pathway manager. I've got the contacts throughout the game. Not Sean Maloney. I mean, he's even 40 yet. I mean, what age is Maloney? What's this, 2025? He must be just 40, in his 40s, mustn't he? It's a lot of wages for a lot of money for his wages, Rodgers. I think that if Celtic, the way that the market is going for managers, I think that Celtic will have to pay the same amount of money that they're paying now to get a good level manager in. If we start going backwards and reducing what the manager is getting as a wage, we will go backwards. If you're never getting into the Champions League. Never mind manage decline of the players. If we start going backwards on what we're paying managers, you're never going to get up and coming managers to come to the club. Do you know? Brian says he accidentally clicked no but meant yes. Martinez could still be, I don't know, see, when we were playing qualifiers, talking about Martinez. I just hope that it doesn't get to the end of the... I hope that Celtic have got their finger on the ball and they give Brendan Rodgers a cut-off date. I hope it doesn't go to the end of the season. And I hope they don't go down the roads of allowing the manager to dictate, we'll wait till we get to the cup final. We'll wait till the end of the season. No, fuck off. We've been down that road. We had to scramble about and bring back Brendan Rodgers because that happened with a previous manager. And then you've got the manager, you get into the cup final, and in Hampden, the manager turns around to Dermot Desmond and Peter Lawwell and goes, do you know what, lads? I'm going to go and speak to Spurs. Is that alright? It's been great working for you. Let's go and win the final. That worked out, didn't it? That worked out. But anyway, right. I'm just jumping through. We need a Henrik. We do need a Henrik, but I don't think we're going to get him. Good punch this way. Wayne Rooney. I lost a dog with 5 titles in the cabinet. The World Cup final is July the 19th. When does the qualifiers start? It'll be August that Celtic will go into the qualifiers. But Bertie Volk's still about. Oh, jeez, you're all off your head. Baz, can I mention the Dave 67 pod? I like this man. He's a nice, calming voice. There you go, I've just mentioned him. 3 million a year for a manager. We should be playing attacking football and scoring goals. Yeah, but at the same time, you can only play against this. You have to have a manager that changes systems. And that's a talk for another day. Anyway, it's been absolutely fantastic having you all on board this morning. There's been quite a lot of people online. It's not too bad for an international break day. The numbers always take a dip during this international break week. On that note, make sure that you're around tonight. We'll be back on for a half-hour update this evening. Have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world. Oh, you'll be glad it's cloudy here.